Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the Hiya toys in Justice 2 Green Lantern and Wet Guy. And these are pretty much what you would expect to see from Hiya. They have done a really good job on most of their figures. They tend to lack in posability a little bit, they are very small figures, and in the face paint jobs. Those tend to be their weakest areas, and they tend to have really nice sculpts and good overall paint jobs and detailing. So will that apply to these guys? Well, in some cases yes, and in some cases no. There's a little bit to talk about, so let's go ahead and get them off the stand and take a closer look. Aquaman stands just about 4 1/4 inches, which makes him pretty close to, let's say, 10.75 centimeters. That's going to make Green Lantern just about 11 centimeters and a little over 4 1/4 inches. It doesn't really make him that, he just is that. So here they are next to each other, and you can see they seem to be fairly detailed figures. And I just want to point out before we even do the daily question how small these guys are. I know I did the measurement, but I know people have trouble understanding scale and size when I'm showing it on camera because it's on your TV and it's big. That's them, and this is a 7-inch Spawn figure. They are very, very tiny. They are coming up to his waist. So when you see all of those details, keep in mind that they are half as big as Spawn and even smaller compared to Super Shredder. These guys are tiny. And I know that makes sense to those of you who collect this scale, but other people may not be familiar with how little they actually are. It's hard to tell that on camera. Now, aesthetically speaking, as usual, Hiya did a really good job with the sculpts. The details are all in there. You can see for Green Lantern, he's got the paneling in his chest. That's all sculpted. There's tons of detail work. Very, very nice sculpts. Same thing for Aquaman. His sculpt is really good, especially with the armor there on his arm. Very nicely done. He even has his little scales. Lots of really nice sculpted detail work. Now, as far as the paints go, Aquaman looks really good, except for they kind of did a weird coloring on his skin. Not the best thing I've ever seen, but it is shaded, so that's good. And I'll say his face is acceptable. It's not great, he does have a lazy eye, but at this scale that is perfectly fine. Now on Green Lantern, on the other hand, his body is painted really well, lots of line work, but his face just looks really, really janky. So I will say the faces do still look a bit cartoonish. Sculpt-wise, not as much, and I think a better paint job would go a long way. But the bodies do look really good as far as the details go and the paint overall. This guy has good proportions, no problem with him. For Green Lantern though, his head does seem kind of small. He has a really long torso and relatively short legs. Not the best set of proportions I've ever seen. He definitely looks weird in this region. It's too low, kind of strange looking. But overall for this scale, I think that's a pretty good showing for the aesthetic. So I'll give this one, I'm going to give them individual ratings, why not? They're not actually a 2-pack, I'm just grouping them up because they're tiny. I'll give Aquaman an 8 for the aesthetic and Green Lantern only a 6. Those proportions and the face throw him off quite a bit despite the clean paint job. As far as accessories go, they both do come with a little display stand with the little tabs that can make them clip together. A Green Lantern comes with his lantern, which is really nicely done. Really exceptional amount of detail on there for the scale, that's good. He does come with 2 fist hands and then 2 gripping hands. Nicely detailed. And then he comes with a big bright green machine gun, which is just awesome. That's the perfect kind of accessory you would want for him, and they did a really good job with it. Water Guy comes with the 2 fist hands that come on him in the package, and then a relaxed and a gripping hand, and then his spear/trident. Nicely detailed accessory, and the hands work nicely. So not a bad batch of accessories. I will give them both a 7 out of 10. Nothing incredible, well, maybe 8. We could go 8, I guess. It's not bad. It's a decent batch of accessories for sure. Now, as far as the articulation goes, we'll just do them individually real quick here. They don't have the most articulation because they are so small. So we have a ball peg for the neck and for the head. The neck seems to move more than the head. The head's very tight, but it is in there, and you should be able to pose the head around pretty well. Shoulder pads are connected to the torso, but they're soft, so let's see how they function. Well, you can raise the arm up better than horizontal, so that's pretty good in that direction. Doesn't seem to go down all that far, but that's probably okay. Full rotation this way until it hits the shoulder pad, then it wants to stretch, and I don't really want to risk ruining it. Okay, let's just push it up. Yeah, it's soft enough and it flexes that it works. It's not great since the shoulder pad is connected to the torso. That's never a great situation, but as far as doing it that way, they did a really good job. No bicep swivel there. You do get that swivel down here in the elbow, and the elbow is just a single joint. You get a little bit less than 90 degrees and your swivel. Again, fairly limited range. Ball peg for the wrist. For the diaphragm joint, single peg, and it moves around a little bit, mostly just for adjustments. Nothing like, there's no major movement in there, but it'll do. It'll be okay. And then for the torso, it's a ball peg again, so you could get a little bit of extra leaning, or lower torso I should say, and you get your rotation. So it's not bad. Definitely a little bit loose this way. For the hips, let's see how the hips function. This is very soft material, so it won't get in the way. And if you lift it up, you can get the legs out. Oh, it's very loose. But you can't get that leg out almost all the way to the side. Is this one? Yeah, this one's really loose too. He can do the splits, but he's very loose. Oh man. And those are just ball pegs. So technically you could fix that by throwing some paper in there if you wanted to buy these despite that problem. Just putting that out there, but it's definitely unacceptably loose. Bringing the leg forward, very minimal range. That is very limited, and they don't feel that loose in that direction. It's just out to the side. So that could be variance from release to release too. So you may get one that's perfectly fine. Ball sockets like that tend to be that way on PVC, so you never know. Thigh swivel is in there, that's fine. Double jointed knee works just fine, no issues there. And then for the ankle, we do have a hinge. Doesn't really go too far back or forward though. And there's a swivel in there, which is kind of useless. So again, relatively limited basic articulation. Good enough for the scale probably, but not really impressive. I'll give him a 6, and that's being kind of generous. Let's see how this one does. I have to keep zooming the camera in because they're so tiny. Obviously his neck does not have any articulation, but the head moves around nicely on it. A little bit of gapping, but a little bit of gapping is necessary if you want good range, and you do get good range. For the shoulder, whoa, that is tight. Well, let's say full rotation that way, horizontal that way, that's okay. And then for the elbow, a single joint and rotation. Again, not quite 90 degrees. Ball peg here. On this side, what do we have going on? That is connected to the arm, so it'll rotate with the arm, which is a good call for sure. That definitely, oh man, they did a good job with the paint on the buckles. So having that rotate with the arm is definitely helpful. You can still probably raise the arm up. Let's see. Yeah, I can't get it to go quite all the way. I don't know if that's even because of this though. I think it's just the way it's designed. But you still get your decent enough range, and then your elbow is going to be the same. For the torso, pretty much the same as Green Lantern, just enough. Nothing crazy, but enough. And then for the waist, less leaning on this one and less rotation. His torso is definitely a lot more limited. Better sculpted, but more limited. For his hips, his legs stick out kind of a lot. His flaps, leg flaps that get in the way. So I'm having trouble figuring out how to do this. I don't think it's really going to work. It feels like maybe you could tuck them under the diaper area, but that's not that soft at all. So it seems very, very limited going forward and out to the side. I guess it's a better sculpt, but it is very limited for sure. And then you get a tiny little thigh swivel. Double jointed knees, I'm guessing, will work just fine. Yeah, they do. And then for the ankles, there's a little hinge in there. How far does it go? It goes pretty far back. That's all right. And pretty far forward. And we have a little ankle rocker, but it's at a very steep angle. So his articulation is not really much better. Overall, it's not great. So I'm going to give it a final verdict of 6 for him. And what we're going to do is now do oh, they used black plastic. That's not good. Black or gray plastic under the painted joint, definitely not ideal. Should be something that matches the skin tone. So that's a problem for the aesthetic too. Okay, so final verdict on these guys will be after I do the daily question. I didn't do the daily question yet today, so I'm going to do it. I'm going to say, here's the daily question, all right? If Aquaman was like a useful superhero, would you like him? I'm going to say no. All right, so final verdict on these guys. For the scale, they're fine. They definitely have more hindrances than I was hoping for. I think most people that collect this scale are used to that sort of thing because it's kind of unavoidable unless you're going to charge a whole bunch. But these guys are premium for the scale and they are relatively pricey. So I'm going to say we only get a final verdict overall of a very generous 7 because the articulation is just too limited. too many issues with the sculpts and the paints. If you don't look too close, they look awesome. But once you get in there, which is what we do for a review, these guys are definitely not the best releases we've seen from Hiya, and that's a little bit unfortunate. Half of Aqua Guy, though, is awesome. I will say that. Very awesome. Very well done. Okay, thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. And if you haven't subscribed, you should, because I have new videos almost every single day, and thousands already on the channel. So make sure you come back for all of that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.